Welcome back to Tucked In Tuesday, your weekly bedtime story. Tonight's story is The Last Book Before Bedtime by Nicola O'Brien, published by Nosy Crow. At the end of a day that's been filled with lovely things that ping and beep and buzz and glow, there's nothing better than one last book before bed. You could say it's the most important story of the whole day. But which story will it be? Hello? Three Little Pigs? Can you hear me? I said, which could the last book before bed possibly be? Please excuse us. We appear to be having some technical difficulties. But I'm in the middle of a game. The last book before bed? Ooh, that sounds interesting. Is it time for cake first? Excuse me, little pigs. It's time for the story to start now. If we have a really sleepy reader here, and we need a bedtime story. Get ready, little pigs. We'll read something else. Come on. Let's get this show on the road. Right. At last. Okay, let's get started. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. When they were all grown up, their mother sent them out into the world to seek their fortunes. But first, she kissed them on their piggy noses and said, "Work hard, and remember, beware of the big, bad wolf." The 3 little pigs soon found a meadow where the flowers smelled so lovely, and the river bubbled so cheerfully that the first little pig declared, "This meadow is perfect. I shall build my house right here, and I shall make it out of straw." Well, I don't know how that's going to turn out. But before the first little pig could even start building his house, there was a rather pink interruption. Hello? It was Cinderella. If this is the last storybook before bedtime, you really want a princess story? My book, it has romance, an evil stepmother, and everyone knows that princess stories are made into films and toys. No one's going to want to watch a film with you pork chops in it. "Hey," said Piggy, "you interrupted our story. And who are you calling pork chop? I haven't even had the chance to build my brick house yet." Well, you're here now, Cinderella. Now let's see what happens. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful maiden who lived with her evil stepmother and 2 ugly sisters. The maiden was sweet and lovely, but her family was mean. They made her sleep by the fireplace, and because she was always covered in cinders, they called her Cinderella. One day an invitation arrived from the royal palace. The prince was holding a grand ball, and everyone was invited. Everyone, that is, except Cinderella. Her evil stepmother would not let her go. "Hang on," said Piggy number 1. "Is this a kissy-kissy story now?" "Who cares?" says Piggy number 2. "There's a banquet in this story." And Piggy number 3 said, "I'd just like to point out that there is no pigs in the Cinderella story." Okay, settle down, little pigs. You 3 can be the evil stepmother and the ugly sisters. Right, pigs, get your dresses on. As the 3 little pigs, the evil stepmother and the ugly stepsisters left the house, Cinderella began to cry, for she was desperately wanted to go to the ball too. Suddenly there was a puff of magic and a fairy appeared. "We shall go to the ball," said the piggy. I said fairy appeared. Oh, this is embarrassing. It usually works. Let's try again. But who's going to be the fairy? Said piggy number 2. I'm just looking forward to the cake, said piggy number 1. Suddenly, there was a puff of magic, and Little Red Riding Hood the Big Bad Wolf appeared. Well, that's a surprise. Listen, said Little Red Riding Hood, the fairy godmother couldn't make it. Ignore all this fancy princess stuff. The last storybook should be exciting and full of action and danger. I'm way more interesting than the Cinderella story. Did I miss anything? Said the big bad wolf. Okay, well, now that we got you both here, let's get back to the story. Oh, it's you, said piggy number 1. Does this mean we have to start again? Said piggy number 2. But we're nearly at the cake part of the story, said piggy number 3. Well, I think Cinderella is an exciting story, so there, said Cinderella. Okay, settle down. Let's try again. Cinderella, you can be Little Red Riding Hood's mother. Pig number 2, you're Granny, and Wolf, you're not in this bit. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a little girl whose cloak had a beautiful red hood, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Could you take this picnic basket to your granny? But don't stray into the forest path, and remember, beware of the big bad wolf." "It's boring being the mum," complained Cinderella. "I've got nothing to do," said piggy number 1. "Well, I'm Granny," said piggy number 2. "Doesn't the granny get eaten?" said piggy number 3. "It's nearly my turn. I'm going to be star of the story, you know," said the big bad wolf. Little Red Riding Hood was skipping along. Then who should she meet but the big bad wolf? "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," he said. "Where are you off to so early and all by yourself?" "I'm off to see my poor sick granny and take her some of my mother's elderflower, caudle, and cake," replied Little Red Riding Hood. "I'm really hungry," said piggy number 2. "Humph! I only got to say one thing," said Cinderella. "Well, at least you had something to say," said piggy number 3. "Hurry up, I'm bored. I want to turn the page," said piggy number 1. "Everyone, quieten down. You're ruining the story. Be careful. You know what? Don't you know that books are only made out of paper? Please?" "This is ridiculous," said Cinderella. "If I can't be the star of the story, then nobody can. I'm going to pull this book to pieces." "Huh," said Little Red Riding Hood. "To play that game, Cinderella, you can't always be the centre of attention." "I was promised cake," said piggy number 2. "Oh dear, it's all going to end in tears," said piggy number 3. "Ooh, this is fun. I love a chance to be bad," said the big bad wolf, tearing the page. "I've had enough of this. Let's just get out of here," cried piggy number 1. "No, don't do that. You'll rip the book. Oh no, the book's in pieces. Now it's bedtime and we have no story. Whatever we're going to do?" "I have an idea," said piggy number 3. "But this is only going to work if we all pitch in. What kind of story do you want?" "A romantic one," said Cinderella. "A funny one," said piggy number 1. "A dangerous one," said the big bad wolf. "An exciting one," said Little Red Riding Hood. "One with cake, come on." "Let's get on with it," said Piggy number 2. Okay, right. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. They were hard-working and resourceful, and lived in a beautiful brick house in a lovely location. On this particular day, they were hosting tea and cake for their friends, Little Red Riding Hood and Cinderella. "Finally we get cake," said Piggy number 3. "More tea," said Piggy number 1. "Yes, please." Just then Little Red Riding Hood arrived. "Cinderella's just texted me," she said. "She's not feeling well, so she won't be able to come for tea." "Well, then we shall go to her," cried the 3rd little pig, who was not only handsome but kind and good. So they packed up all the lovely food and drink and set off for Cinderella's house. The path to Cinderella's house wound through a deep, dark forest. But who should they meet there but the big bad wolf? The 3 little pigs and the Little Red Riding Hood were afraid of wolves and decided not to stop and talk. But this wolf saw the picnic basket and guessed where they were going. "I'm going to sneak to Cinderella's house first," thought the wolf, "and when they arrive I'll gobble them up." When the 3 little pigs and Little Red Riding Hood arrived at Cinderella's house, they found someone in bed, someone who was wearing Cinderella's favourite pink scarf. "What big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," said the someone. "What big ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to hear you with," said the someone. The 3rd little pig looked at the someone very carefully. "What big teeth you have," said the 3rd little pig. "All the better to eat you with," shouted the big bad wolf and leapt out of the bed. But the 3rd little pig knew exactly what to do next. He leapt forward and wedged a large slice of cake firmly into the wolf's huge, toothy mouth. "It's so delicious," cried the wolf. "Even tastier than little pigs or little girls." The 1st little pig then let Cinderella out of the cupboard, where she promptly fell in love with him. "Is this the romantic bit?" said Piggy number 1. "But I'm a pig." "Oh, well, nobody's perfect," said Cinderella. But they didn't kiss because it wasn't that kind of story. And they all lived happily ever after. Whew, well done, team. You really did a great job in the end. And that was just what a last book before bed should be. Piggy number 1 said, "We had everything in that story." "Yes," said Cinderella. "It was funny, exciting, dangerous, and romantic." "And we had cake," said Piggy number 2. "I'm still hungry, though. I didn't get to eat anyone," said the big bad wolf. "Well, you never actually do eat anyone in my story," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Stop! Hang on! The kid's still awake," said Piggy number 3. "Are you still awake? Oh no! But we've run out of pages. We're going to need another book." "Yay!" cried Piggy number 1. "Another book! I love bedtime stories." "This time," said Cinderella, "can we have something with a happy ending?" "This time," said Piggy number 2, "let's have a story with bananas in it." "No," said the big bad wolf. "Let's have a scary story with small animals that I can eat." "I think," said Little Red Riding Hood, "I want to branch out of fairy tales. Just saying." "I hope it starts with Once Upon a Time," said Piggy number 3. Well, which book are you going to choose? The end. Sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite.